Welcome back to In the Zone across West Michigan. Casey Ford, now joined by one of my good friends. And I'm not going to sit here and call him old or anything, but my guest today is a guy that coached me when I was 12 on the All-Star team. We went to Blissfield, Michigan, fourth place finish in the state. I thought we had a lot of talent that year, but unfortunately sometimes it doesn't work out. But we had a pretty darn good run.
We had a great run.
Leroy Hackley is my guest this afternoon right here on In the Zone across West Michigan. A couple things before we continue. Yeah, there we go. You can follow me, Real Casey Ford, on Twitter, or you can find me on Facebook at just Casey Ford. I think that's what you do. I'm not really good with this whole media thing, but you can find me on Twitter, Real Casey Ford on Twitter, and obviously this will be on WCET and Ustream and everything like that. But I don't know if I call you coach, athletic director, referee. I don't know what to call you, Leroy.
Call me Jack. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none.
There's so much I've always wanted to talk to you about, because I've been doing this now for 15 years, and I've never once actually had a chance to actually interview you on screen. But you've been athletic director at Byron Center, where you currently live and reside. You've been athletic director at Jenison.
Right.
I believe
7 years at Jenison.
Grant,
I was last 3 years there, and now I'm just finishing up my first year at Muskegon Orchard View.
With one of my good friends, Joe Tanis, who is the football coach at Muskegon.
my varsity football coach. So
I guess let's get into the athletic director duties first.
Okay.
I guess what entails being an athletic director, because there's so much that goes on. One of my good friends and former teachers, Tim Ritzma, that's over in Zealand.
Ritzy and I are great friends.
Yeah, it's hard not to be. He's such a likable guy. But I saw something on Facebook a few weeks ago now that he said he experienced a first. He had to take a umpire to the hospital because he broke his collarbone.
Right.
So, with all that being said, what are some of the duties that athletic director entails?
Well, everybody thinks it's a great job. Everybody says, boy, I want to be an athletic director because all you guys do is go and watch the games. Well, they don't understand that before those games, somebody's got to set up the game. Somebody has to set up the transportation, hire the officials. You've got game day management stuff you have to do. You have to get ticket takers. You have to, all these things have to go into place. So really, I laugh all the time, because the job is really in two phases. It's you get there and you have to handle what I call the now things, and then usually around 2 o'clock, 2:30, then I tell my secretary, well, I'm going out to my second job now, because that's now you got to go up and set up for the events and get ready for everybody to come in. So it's a lot of administrative stuff during the daytime. At night, the biggest thing for me is once I get two teams and a set of officials there, then I can read. The rest of it, I don't care if I have ticket takers. You want the ticket takers, but if I don't have ticket takers, if I don't have concession people, that's fine. But once I get two teams, a set of officials, I know I can play the game. It's like, phew, okay, my job for today is done. So it's really a lot of work. Some ADs, they start early in the morning, depending on what their duties are. Some of them are doing dual duties, like assistant principal and athletic director, and if those guys that do that, they're just really killing those types of guys, because they've got to be there at 7 o'clock when the schools open up. And if you got an event that night, you're going to be there at least until 7, and most likely usually 8:30, 9 o'clock. So those guys are putting in 12, 13 hours a days all the time. I used to do that. I've gotten smart. I've been fortunate in my 16 years as an AD that I was always just an AD, so I was able to come in a little bit later on game days, and still, when I say later, I'm still putting in about a 10-hour day, but it wasn't the taxing thing where I'm doing assistant principal stuff where you're dealing with discipline or teacher evaluations and all that other stuff. I can just focus on just being an athletic director. I think that's what kept me around so long.
Leroy Hackley joins me, Casey Ford, right here on In the Zone across West Michigan, good friend and athletic director at Muskegon Orchard View. I guess let's get into the game day operations before the game day operations, because we recently had Rick Wesley, Grand Valley State basketball coach, on right here on In the Zone across West Michigan. But I always say he doesn't sleep because of all the job titles that he does, because you're a basketball official as well.
Right.
But he coaches the team. Obviously, he has to recruit the teams. Correct. He has to recruit the players. He's got to go town to town, city to city. Athletic director kind of just as busy because you have to find the schedule. You guys got to fine-tune a schedule. If some team drops off a schedule, it's harder than the daylights to find another team to replace that.
Especially football.
And let's get to that because of so much conference between the OK Red, the OK Blue, the OK White, the OK Silver, the Shores Conference, the Mid-Pennants, everything that goes on. How tough is it with the scheduling portion if a team were to drop or a team wants to add you, but you're trying to find an open date? How hard is it to coordinate schedules?
For a lot of the sports, it's not as tough as you would think, but for football, it's very hard because football, you're locked in the conferences. For instance, my conference is a 6-team conference, so depending on when we have our non-league dates, and the problem that you have is a lot of the conference, especially I've been in a conference where we were a 7-team conference, so now you're looking for a bye. So if you're looking for instance, this year I have to find a bye or a football game in week 8. Well, week 8, like you said, all the OK conferences, they're already locked in because they've got even number. They do a thing what they call the crossover, so they're playing the other teams in the other division, so they're all locked in. The West Michigan Conference, which is right around us, they've got an even number of teams, so they're all locked in. The CSAA Conference, which is another school conference that we play a lot of teams, they've got even numbers. They're all locked in. So most of us in those situations, I have a game at Detroit Allen Academy this year. I know Muskegon Catholic Central, they've got to go over to Detroit to play. So you would think having all these schools in this one area, it'd be easy to find games, but it's not necessarily the case. And then in football, it makes it a little bit tougher because you have to get those 6 wins so you can make the
5
playoff.
if you have an 8-game schedule.
5 if you have an 8-game schedule. So you have to you got that magic number like no other sport that we have that you have to do that. So not only do you have to find games, you have to try to find games that you're at least going to be competitive in. And, you don't go in and say, I'm going to find a game that I want to win, but you find one that, hey, I've got a chance to win. And, so for me to say, well, Rockford's open on week 1 and Orchard View's open on week 1, we'll play Rockford. Well, I'm probably not going to be athletic director much longer if I did that. So you got to find somebody that you're comparable with, somebody that you're going to be competitive with, and really have a realistic chance of trying to get those 6 wins or 5 wins, whichever the case is.
See, and growing up around here, Jenison was in the OK Red at that time. I think they're in the blue now.
They're going into they're in the white this year.
Okay.
They just finished up the white. Next year they're going into the black.
Okay. Whatever.
It is.
There's been so much change since I graduated in 2001.
It has.
And that obviously that affects everyone because you mentioned football, and obviously football doesn't matter if the NFL, college, high school. That's kind of what drives things. And with Jenison, it was always you're playing Granville, you're always playing Rockford, you're always playing Hudsonville. Because Hudsonville was in the white when I was in school. Then they all were in the red for like a 5-year period, and then they all separated.
The Metro Conference for a while, and then we're back in the red. And it's like you said, it's almost like every 4 years they reevaluate where the schools are from an enrollment standpoint. Competition supposedly doesn't play any factor in it, but schools get bigger, schools get smaller. So to make that competitive balance, they reevaluate it every 4 years. So some schools will move, some schools won't. You get some schools that'll come in, some schools that'll drop, and it's just like you said, it's no consistency to it right now.
And you talked about the competitiveness because obviously where I live now, Ishmael has been so competitive, and they went to a state championship game in 2010. They won in 11, 13, and 15. I mean, they go to Wisconsin and find schools, but it's a little bit different because I think it counts as a win, but doesn't go to like the MHSAA as a win.
It's because I don't remember exactly how it is. Right.
But I know like Menominee, they'll go play like Traverse City, and then they'll meet in like Gaylord. But I mean, you have teams that are coming down from like Traverse City to go play at a neutral site to play like a Menominee or Ishmael. I mean,
we hosted when I was AD at Jenison. I remember one year we hosted Traverse City West. I don't remember who they were playing, but it was a school coming up from the south, and they were just looking for a place that would, that could host them. So Patty Topaldi was a good friend of mine, and she called up and said, we need a place. And I said, hey, we're open, we'll do it. So it's tough.
You talk about building a program because you being at Byron Center, you going to Jenison and having success at Jenison, going to Grant and doing what you did up there. I mean, I know tennis was huge at Grant at that time.
Yes.
And then now at Orchard View. What's it take to build a good high school program?
Well, and we're at that point in Orchard View right now that we're in kind of a lull where, a lot of our programs, if you're looking at wins and losses, we haven't been as successful as they have in the past. So, first of all, the first thing you have to do is number one, come in with a philosophy that this is what we want to do. This is how we want to do it. This is how we're going to get there. I always say, the first thing you have to do is let people know what the plan is, how we're going to get there with the plan, and then how we're going to implement it. I think once you get that buy-in and from the coaches, get them excited that, hey, yep, we got some new stuff going on, and then getting good coaches in place. You have to evaluate the coaches that's there. Sometimes people get complacent, the coaches get complacent, the students get complacent. So you've just got to come in with that new energy and just say, you know what, we've got some great things in place. I've got good coaches. I've got good facilities. I've got good students. Now, how do we make this work? So just kind of get that energy going. For me, I think that's been one of my things that I've been most successful at, is just building those relationships with the coaches, with the parents, and with the students. So they, I tell them I'm a competitive person, but I also understand that we can't win all the time. But what I want to do is just be competitive. If you put a competitive program on the field, I'm happy with that. So just getting that thing in there. Then you try to get the resources for the programs, because resources are finite in most districts. So I'm trying to take a look at the budget and say, okay, how can we move things around in the budget so that they are so that we can do some good things, and then making all the programs, like you said earlier, football kind of drives the athletic ship, because that brings more people in the district than any other program. So so you got to concentrate on football a little bit, but I want to make sure that all my other programs realize, hey, you're just as important to our success, and all the kids are successful. Getting the student body involved in it, and getting all the athletes to understand that we're one student body. We're not a football team and a basketball team, because a lot of those schools. And then the other thing for us, I think for any athletic director will tell you, we got to have multi-sport athletes. That's the key. You can't have good athletes walking the halls doing nothing. So.
Well, and you're in a different spot than you've been before, too. Leroy Hackley joins me right here on In the Zone across West Michigan, athletic director at Muskegon Orchard View, but obviously well known in the West Michigan area. Besides me, I feel like you really do know everybody.
Well,
but Muskegon's a different spot because you have like Muskegon Catholic Central. And,
right.
And where you're at now, people can kind of pick and choose, because they have recruiting where you couldn't do that at Byron Center, you couldn't do that at Grant, you couldn't do that
right.
at Jenison.
That's true. We've got so many high schools in a small area. My district, for instance, touches up against Muskegon Oak Ridge. Then we have Reese Puffer right there. Then we have, like you said, Muskegon Catholic Central is there. West Michigan Christians right there. So kids have a big choice of where they want to go to school, and that's a big thing. For me, is how do we keep, we have great programs at the lower levels. When they get to high school, kids tend to veer off because, this school, this school's won a lot of football state championships. I want to be a part of that, or this and that. So really trying to get those kids to understand, stay home. We need you to stay in our district. Everybody, we have the schools of choice, so I won't say that schools are out there recruiting, but because of schools of choice.
But they can kind of pick. I mean, it's
not recruiting. Go down that road.
I will. I've been doing this for so long, and like I said, it's been 15 years. It doesn't matter if you're an Ann Arbor Pioneer when I was at WTK working in Ann Arbor, or if you're here at Jenison. I mean, that private schools can kind of recruit, and they have different rules that they can play by. I mean, look at the state finals this year. I mean, was it every single division there was a private school that won this year?
I won't.
With the exception of like Ishpeming, I think it was,
but there was quite
Division 7 was exception
right.
because Ishpeming won. But I want to say like the first 5 divisions or so, it was a private school that won.
Right.
And obviously they have a little bit of advantage because they can, I don't want to say pick, but it is a recruiting. My words, not Leroy's, because what goes on.
Right.
But that's just my 2 cents.
Warren Mart just, I don't know if you saw the article on Warren Mart. They just got in trouble with the MHSA because of things they were doing out of season that they weren't supposed to do. So, it used to be, it was more of a concern because we kind of use the word recruiting, but now with the schools of choice option that you have, that's the one thing people have always said, well, why don't the parochial schools, why don't they have their own league and the public schools and have theirs? But what we say from athletic standpoint is, with schools of choice, everybody's kind of on the same footing. Obviously some schools are a little better at it than getting kids, how they actually do that. I try to monitor how, what's going on with my kids. If I have a feeling that something might be happening, I'll get a hold of the other AD and say, hey, you might want to look into this because this is what I'm hearing. And if this happens, understand, I'm probably going to report it. So, we as athletic directors, that's the one thing that even those athletic directors where they have those kids go into those schools, they'll tell you that's one of the biggest headaches, because it's not them doing it. It's usually somebody outside. You're sitting in church with somebody, or you see somebody at a wedding, and it's just like, hey, we got a good thing going over at this place. We'd love to have you over. So it's really not coming from coaches, and it's not coming from athletic directors per se. It's really those outside influences. Kind of like the same thing at colleges. You have boosters, and you try to keep them away from your program, but it's hard to do.
Leroy Hackley joins me right here on In the Zone across West Michigan. You can also watch us on Ustream. I have to ask tough questions because I still do this. What happened at Jenison?
For me, for the bottom line, athletics is getting to be like at the college level. So for years we've been down. We've been down a lot at Jenison.
Heck of a football stadium, though.
Yeah, great facilities. We have great coaches. We have great kids. But you know what? We're playing in a tough conference, and so sometimes that happens. You have peaks and valleys. I think they were looking for somebody that could come in and really turn the football program around. Well, they got the person that they.
And you had Irv Sigler there at the time.
We had Coach
who had
Sigler,
lots of success at Granville and produced some Big Ten talent.
Great football coach, but you get you get people that they want to think higher. They had somebody that came in that won a state championship at a school and a national championship at a college. So, yep, if we can get this guy, he can come in and turn our program around. Well, that person was an athletic director, so you're not going to come over and just coach on a football salary. We don't pay that much to make a living off of it. So, you need a position for him, and you know what?
That's fine.
That's what happens.
Okay. Leroy Hackley joins right here on the Zone across West Michigan, and besides all your athletic director duties and your travel time, you must go through cars like every week and a half or so, because you put a lot of miles.
But I put a lot of miles on it.
By the way, I can help you with that. You can come see me in Marquette. Fry Chevrolet. Give me a call, 906-226-2577. But Coach has my my cell phone as well, because that's the relationship we have. But we do always have great deals at Fry Chevrolet in Marquette, Michigan, just in case you're looking for a great deal. Now, with that plug out of the way, you also do officiating.
Yes.
And you've met my son a few times now, and when he was in a car seat and sleeping at Northern Michigan basketball games. And
it's a long trip for us.
I met you at the SDC up at Michigan Tech before, you and Kevin Quaker, and I love Kevin. You guys still work together? Does he still do this?
You know what? I'm more on the women's side now, and Kevin's on the men's side.
Okay.
But Kevin was one of my students at Grand Valley, and I helped him get started in officiating, and he's done a great job. He's just taken off.
And he was coaching Calvin Christian.
If you ever see Kevin, tell him to give me a call sometime, because he's kind of, I helped him get here, and he just kind of looked back and forgot about me. So
big timing you.
He is.
Oh, no,
we're still great friends.
When I was pitching for Jenison, when I was in 10th grade, he was a coach at Calvin Christian at that time. We played against him, so it was always pleasantries when we played against him too. And Kevin, obviously, he's a great dude. I think he still lives in the Granville area.
He lives in Hudsonville. Yep.
Okay. Oh, in the Hudsonville area. Okay. So if you see Kevin, make sure you have him give Leroy a call and stop big timing him. But no, you guys put on a lot of miles, obviously.
We do.
And they're always looking for basketball officials. Obviously, Adam Hammery, he comes from the Upper Peninsula. He's a Major League Baseball. You might even remember a couple weeks ago, he threw out the Mets pitcher, and Linda Cohen started calling him out from ESPN. But, I mean, he's a GLIAC official as well. And to me, it kind of feels like an official is a dying breed. Because of all the crap from the parents and the players. You don't make them like you and Dave St. Ange and Gino Filizzetti or anything like that anymore, because of all the crap. And it's people in my generation that can't handle it, that can't turn the rabbit ears off. I guess, what keeps you officiating? Why do you keep doing it?
Well, for me, it's fun. I enjoy the game. When I was in high school, didn't start on my basketball team. Didn't play a lot on the basketball team, but for now, what I tell people, when that ball is thrown up, I'm in that game every second of the game. Players get to take a break. As officials, we're out there. We make every play, every game, up and down the court. And I just like the interaction. Number one, I like the interaction with my fellow officials. I like the interaction with the coaches and with the players. For me, that's one thing I tell people as far as being an athletic director. I don't think I would have been, I know I wouldn't have been a good as an athletic director if I wasn't a basketball official, because I'm used to dealing with people in high tense situations and stressful situations, and my job is just to keep everything calm, and then okay, I listen to you. Okay, coach, we still have to play the game, so let's move on. But for me personally, I've always enjoyed it. The yelling part. I think again with my personality,
it's hard to hate a guy like you, Leroy. Seriously.
Well, thank you. But for me, I think people see. I do remember I was at North Point Christian once years ago, working a game, and this elderly gentleman, I think he was probably in his 80s, late 80s. But, he was sitting there with his walker on the side, and it was just a timeout, and I remember the guy just looked at me and said, "Boy, you look like you're having a great time out there." And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he said, "I guess that's why they call it a game." And that's what I've always, that kind of struck to me. Is like, yeah, that's why.
But I feel like people have gone away from that, because it doesn't matter what kind of gymnasium you're in now. Everybody wants to be the next LeBron James or Kobe Bryant. Back when I was growing up, it was Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson. With players, and Coach Wesley talked about this too. And people, it seems like you're always on stage. You're always trying to be recruited. I guess, how does that hurt the officiating?
The thing that's really hurt, I guess, it has hurt officiating in a sense, is technology. People talked about, you watch an NFL game and they talk about how many calls the officials miss. Oh, the officials are terrible. And, they're really not. If you look at
it's in real time.
Right. If you look at it from real time sake, those officials aren't missing that many calls. But when you can zoom in, to this much to see that the guy's, his toenail is out, so now he's out. So that's a big difference. So that's what people see now, because they only see those calls. Same thing going through the catch. Before we knew what a catch was. You know what? The guy's got the ball in his hands. He's got control when he comes over. It's a catch.
Calvin Johnson and Des Bryant both had catches, by the way. Just throwing it out there.
Now you're looking at it. You slow it down frame by frame and millisecond, and the technology is so great that you can actually see every little thing. So look, that ball touched the ground. Well, you're not going to pick that up. So technology has really changed the way. So now it's to the point where everybody thinks, the officials were bad. Well, bad because we're human.
Right.
We see it from, like you said, real time. You can't go back, unless you got certain time frames or certain things you can take a look at. So and a lot of people can't. Our problem today is we've taught our kids not to be able to take credit. I mean, we're trying to get them out of a situation where they don't be criticized. You know what? As an official, I know going in, I'm going to miss calls tonight. I know I'm not going to be perfect. My goal going into that game is I want to try to be perfect, but I know I'm not going to be perfect. My relationship with coaches, I'll have a coach say, "Leroy, I don't think you got that call right." And I tell them, instead of, you'll get some officials like, "I know I was right, coach." I just go, "Coach, you could be right, but hey, I made the call, so we're going to play."
Okay, let's bring that up, because as a broadcast announcer, Casey Ford, Leroy Hackley, I've done many games for the University of Michigan, high school basketball. We as announcers, we always brought this up, and I won't lean back that much, but we always brought this up. Is there such thing as a makeup call?
It's not really,
because broadcasters always bring it up.
Everybody thinks it's a makeup call, and it's really not a makeup call. But I think as an official, you don't have to boo me when I miss a call. I know I missed if there's something comes up, I know, I can tell by the reaction of everybody in the place and the players, hey, I think I might have missed. I mean, I've had situations where the ball goes out of bounds and I raise my hand to get ready to point, and I'm going to point that we're going to go back this way, and I've got 10 players already walking on the court. Well, you know what? I'm smart enough to say, I must have missed that one, so we're going this way. So we look pretty good. You're actually, that makeup call, you're just concentrating a little bit more. You know what? I just kicked this call, so I'm going to make sure I get the next one right. The player's coming down. It's not in your mind that it's a makeup call, but of course, it's always kind of looks like it. Well, the coach just got on him a little bit. Well, sometimes what the coach is saying, hey, I need you to look at this because my player's doing this, and sometimes now if I'm keying on it, yeah, that coach was right. And then I make the call. Well, he only got the call because the coach. Yeah, well, I usually say thank you, coach, for letting me. Because that player was doing what you were saying. I just happened not to see that at the time, so I'm going to concentrate on it a little bit more.
We only have a couple minutes left remaining. Okay. Obviously, being an official, what are you doing to try to get more people in there? Because, like I said, without officials, a game can't go on.
Well, I tell you, Casey, in the next couple of years, it's going to be tough. For the high school, the MHSA just put out a stat a while back. The average age for officials in the state of Michigan right now is about 52. That's the average age, and most of them, guys like myself, this is my.
You're like what, 46?
Yeah, I'm close to that. So thank you, appreciate that. But so I'm 46, and I've been a referee. I'm coming up on my 40th year of officiating.
Perfect.
So
Gotta start them young.
Well, that's true. And and so most of the guys, you got guys like Mike Vandervelde, who's over 50 years officiating. Right. So we're not getting younger. We're not. My biggest joke is that 20 years ago I could run the floor like a deer. You know what? I still run like a deer. It's just a John Deere. So,
well, seriously, because I obviously know a lot of officials, and with you, Dave St. Ange, he's getting up there. Gino Filizetti, he's getting up
all
there.
In that same age bracket,
and they're pretty much the Upper Peninsula group. Obviously, they do some games down here, and you guys do travel up to there. I don't know what your schedules are, but Kevin Quaker, I mean. Yeah, I played against him when I was 17 years old playing baseball, so he's got to be at least in his 40s now. So I guess how. Is there like, I don't want to say like a 911 emergency, but I mean, officials, they're not getting brought up at the 20, 20,
I think
25.
What we need to get back to, Casey, as one thing is at the university level. I know when I was at Grand Valley, and then I still did it when I became an
Was it Grand Valley College then?
It was colleges. It was the Grand Valley colleges. I taught an officiating class, and that's how a lot of the guys that are officiating to now, like the Quakers and those guys, in that age group, they came through my officiating program. And I made sure that I got them. We still laugh about the days when I was sending them out to Allendale Christian, Borculo Christian, Lamont Christian, all these schools, and Hudsonville. Keith Burgess was the AD here then, and so I would provide him and Kurt Powles with their officials for middle school games. And it was those guys that I was helping to train, and I would actually work games with them, or I'd send them out by themselves because they did great jobs. A lot of the colleges aren't doing that now. They're not providing. Some of them still have the officiating classes, but they're not making. For me, part of the grade was you had to go out and either officiate middle school game, high school game, or you get out and do intramurals. And first, I had them start at intramurals where I paid them about $3.35 an hour because I think that's what minimum wage was. And if they did well, I said, okay, I'll send you out to the middle schools and the high schools, and you can make a lot more money. And so once they got that. They realized that was a good thing. So just get them. You just got to get them. You got to get them hooked. And the other thing you have to do is they have to have a job that's flexible enough that they can get out of work early for a 4 o'clock ball game, because everybody wants to start right at the varsity level. Oh yeah, I can do because I can work a 7 o'clock game. Well, guess what? If you're just starting out, you need to start at middle school. Middle school starts at 4 o'clock. Freshman games start at 4 o'clock. So you have to have that flexibility. You have to have the flexibility of a family life. So there's a lot of variables. A lot of people get into it. Careers change. I was just one of those people that I just enjoyed it. I love being. I love being with the athletes. I love being with the coaches. I have a lot of friends. People always think that with officials and coaches that we're like this, but really we're all in it together. So
well, and you have to also have a very understanding wife.
That you
because
do.
If you don't have support from the house, seriously, because you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Without the support of your wife, you wouldn't be here. Because if she didn't like it,
it was always funny when I first I was doing this before we got married, so she knew what she was getting into. And then, as you had kids, and then it was like, well, you need to be home more with the kids and, that type of stuff. And it's like, well, I have to do this. And then when I got into college ball and the big check, especially when I made it to Division I and the big checks started coming, it was more, how come you don't have more games? So you have to have, you do have to have an understanding spouse.
Leroy, I always appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey.
It's been a fast 30 minutes.
It definitely has been.
I mean, we could probably talk a little more just because of us knowing each other as well as we do. But I do always appreciate the time. I know that I will see you during the seasons.
Yep, sometime.
Because we always, you tend to text me when you're up in the northern Michigan area, but we do have to get going because I know I have about a minute remaining. So as always, I do appreciate the time.
Thanks so much for having me, Casey.
And if you ever need a car, come see me at Fry Chevrolet. I'm in Marquette. Give me a call, 906-226-2577. I'll get you a great deal. But come see me at Fry Chevrolet if you need a car. And once again, if you're looking to do something 4th of July weekend, obviously the Granville fireworks and the parade, they do put on a tremendous show. So does Grand Rapids when they do have them. They don't always have them. Come see us in the Upper Peninsula. Go to Munising. Come to Marquette. Tweet me, Real Casey Ford. I'll make sure to hook you up. And I promise you, the best fireworks you'll ever see, especially on the bay. You can feel the boom. But until next time, Leroy Hackley, I'm Casey Ford. You've been watching In the Zone across West Michigan and on Newsstream. So long, everybody.